fairy dimensions are extremely magical. There's a lot that goes on in the fairy dimensions, and there are different types of fairies. You know, there are fairies, there's pixies, there's gnomes, there's leprechauns, and they have their own little culture, their little society over in the spirit dimensions.
So something that somebody had asked me earlier was, what do fairies truly look like? Like when you have channeled fairies and you've seen them, are they like Tinkerbell like we've seen in Disney films, or are they a little bit different?
That is a great question. And yes, I have seen fairies that very much look just like little versions or similar to Tinkerbell. It's just like when I channel the angelic. Sometimes an angel looks just like they do out of a book. Very angelic. And the fairies have the same, you know, the same kind of look. They also look very different. And sometimes, just like humans, we all look very different. Fairies can also all look very different. There are fairies with wings, fairies with no wings. You know, you have the gnomes and, you know, and the pixies and the leprechauns. They all have very different appearances.
Right, which kind of leads me into like perhaps the misconceptions surrounding fairies and the fact that fairies or gnomes can be more mischievous than we think and perhaps evil in some people's opinions. What do you think on that?
Well, I can only share my opinion and my experience with fairies, and as always, if it doesn't resonate, leave it right here. So I've had these conversations with fairies, and I have literally sat with little fairies and had these chats. And one thing that they were really clear, there's always two sides to the story. Right? So, you know, back in ancient times, whether it be ancient Greece or, you know, when the fairies were on the earth, very visual. Some of the stories that were told, they could be a little bit mischievous and troublemaking, but it was to protect what was theirs.
Right.
So, you know, one fairy said to me is, if you can imagine people coming in to destroy your home, you're going to protect.
And I think that goes without saying for the entire spiritual realm, because that takes us back to when we were at Screaming Tunnel, and it wasn't inherently an evil spirit, but when you're, you know, mistreating her space, she can come off that way.
That's right. And it also taps into a lot of fears. Like we've been told a lot of different stories, fairy tales and storybooks and movies. So sometimes we kind of lean into that. And in the documentation, you know, that there is very little of it, but what the folk stories are is that they can turn on you. And what the fairies say to me and the gnomes say to me is like, it's not our fault. We're just kind of protecting our land. And they do have their own disputes amongst their own communities. You know, they do have their own issues. Now gnomes, they are very interesting species. They can be very comical. They have a very, in my opinion, weird sense of humor. So they're the practical jokers. Sometimes you may not find it funny. Right? So they may find it funny to come up to you and pinch the back of your leg and you look and there's nothing there, but you definitely felt the pinch. And that's gotten documented or reported as aggression. The gnomes say, I'm just playing around. So you know, they have their own version now, and I'm sure somewhere in there, in between, you know, history and time and stories and the fairies and the humans, I'm sure somewhere in there's a mix of the truth. But I've definitely not experienced any evil within any of the elementals. A little bit of spunkiness and some practical jokes. Like, I have had my bag go missing when out here in the forest, and all of a sudden it shows up like literally on the next stump. It's like, you know, you kind of question your sanity.
Yes, fairies, I've actually heard, are known to play little tricks, and it's very cute and it's very innocent a lot of times. I think that's so cool. I guess I would wonder, how do fairies view us as a human race? Like, do they enjoy coexisting when in our dimension, or do they feel differently about us?
The fairies have a lot of mixed feelings with us. And unfortunately, those mixed feelings are growing. And a lot of it has to do with what we're doing with our planet, how we're treating each other. And fairies, Haley, they're community-based. They're very, very, very much community-based. Everybody helps one another, everybody builds together. And humans, we're getting pulled further and further away from that. And they don't understand that. Like, why can't you all work together? You know, it's almost like, you know, hi-ho, off the work you go together.
It's funny you said that, because that's what I was picturing in my head when you did that, but I didn't want to make a joke of it. I just pictured them like, do like
yes,
building things.
yeah, they do work together as
Yeah.
a big community. So they struggle with that, but the biggest thing they struggle with humans is how we're treating the planet, the amount of waste that we're doing, the amount of destroying that we're doing of forests and each other. They really struggle. They don't have an understanding. To them, it's like, and for me too, I guess, and for many of us, we really don't understand why as humans are destructive.
Yeah.
Right?
That's understandable.
And that's why fairies protect the forests, and that's kind of why they can be felt so strong or seen quite often in the forest. We are getting a little bit wet.
Yeah, I would love to continue. Well, should we pause for a minute and see if it slows?
Let's pause for a minute, Haley, and then I would love to show you the gnome portal.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Where I feel the gnomes. And it feels very different than the fairy houses. You'll see. It feels very different.
Okay, I'm so excited. All right,
let's find a tree.
Yes.
One thing about the elementals, and which is absolutely fascinating, is I have channeled them as spirit guides for us living people. And what was really interesting is every time I've channeled a fairy as somebody's spirit guide, the one thing that keeps coming up is the vibration of fun and magic. They've come to you at this point in your journey to remind you that life and the journey here is supposed to be a little bit more fun and magical.
Yeah.
And they have an incredible way of reminding us of that, and they work really hard to tap us into the vibration of fun. I try with everything that I do to tap into the feel good, the fun, the magic, and that's what fairies that come to us as spirit guides on our journey are trying to help us do.
So then I guess one of my questions there would be, I guess you would more so see fairies also with adults who might need to heal their inner children and bring back that inner magic that we had as children. And then once they bring that back, the fairies may move on. They don't typically stay your entire life with you.
They may not stay, none of our spirit guides may stay with us our entire life, because we have a spirit council. I've talked about this in previous videos. So a fairy can be on your spirit council and agrees to come and guide you when it's time for you to shift and look at life with a little bit more magic, or with some inner child work. Fairies also guide children. Or even like to hang out with children. I see a lot of fairy energy. Baby monitors.
Really?
Quite often, those little orbs, quite often it's little fairies coming into play.
If somebody was to make a fairy garden, what would incline a fairy to choose it besides maybe the things that attract them? Like, is it a type of personality? Is it someone who goes and talks? Like, is there something that someone can do to attract?
Yeah, so if number one, you want to make your fairy garden with your heart space, with the intention of helping and loving and giving a fairy family a place to stay.
Right.
Flowers. Fairies love flowers. Strong scents.
Yeah.
And they also like butterfly bushes too.
Yeah.
Butterfly bushes are very much one of the fairy favorites. Planting lavender is another good one. Or rose bushes. Fairies love roses. Providing shelter. Providing shelter. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. You can leave a tree stump there, or you can. I actually have little wee mini fairy houses.
I love it.
I had little wee fairy houses in the garden, and like I shared earlier, shiny things. Anything, a bird bath because of the water, to be able to see the reflection. Leaving those kind of things out, but working on your own energy, your own belief, and your own. Where's your own vibration when it comes to magic? Yeah,
like, are you subconsciously skeptical, or are you truly open to the idea that elementals exist among us?
Yeah, and that kind space that's in you.
Yeah.
Living from that space. Fairies want an environment of an energy that's welcoming and peaceful and happy.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't come and visit me if my house was angry, right?
Probably not.
Or if I was angry all the time.
Yeah.
So, but you know what's really exciting is when you tap into the vibration of fairies.
Right.
And you start to live from that excitement. Like, I get so excited and I realize I'm behaving like a fairy.
Yeah.
That excitement and that magical, everything has so much magic to me. And, the fairies included.
Yeah.
We're looking for magic, and look for magic in ways that resonates to you.